Hey there, Live Like Your Nail Color gals. There are moments when our lives suddenly change. Chip happens and we have to adjust big time. Just a few weeks ago, I had one of those moments. My 88-year-old mom fell and broke her hip, which started a whirlwind blur of 2 weeks of surgery, rehab, and all the ups and downs that go with it. My day-to-day world has suddenly changed, and I'm trying to figure out how to adjust, including how to take care of myself while I'm taking care of my aging parents. Because this is such a big change, I need some new strategies to have enough energy for myself. And I'm not alone. According to the Labor Department, 20% of adult women, that's 1 in 5, spend time caring for an older relative, all while you're working, running a business, involved with children and grandchildren, and trying to have a life. Maybe you too? Good news is there are people who have been figuring out this whole thing way before you and me. In fact, my gal pal Stella is one of them. In today's episode, you can listen into our conversation about what she's done to take care of herself while taking care of her aging parents. But before we dive into our conversation, have you taken my quiz to determine your nail color persona? All you have to do is go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz, answer a few quick questions, and in your results, discover your specific nail color persona, your built-in strengths, and how to tap into those strengths when chip happens. Again, go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Now, let's get talking with Stella.
Tired of so much chip happening? Discouraged by so much downer news? Weary from chronic crisis? Don't let the chips keep you down. Welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, where the tips of your fingers and toes are ready to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, and life you want. In each episode, we flip the chip and let our fun nail color with that crazy fun name cheer us on to remember our strengths, embrace the power of choice, see life as an adventure, and know resilience is only a touch-up or change-up away. Get ready for a good time and a good laugh with your host, Mary Foley.
Welcome back, Live Like Your Nail Color gals. You know, we've all heard of the importance of self-care. You know, the things you do to keep yourself renewed, to keep yourself healthy, to keep your mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the whole 9 yards, physically. But what do you do when suddenly you kind of have to take it to a new level, or at least rethink it because you're suddenly into a caregiver situation? You know, it turns out, it's no surprise to most of us, that mostly it's the daughters and the women in the lives of our parents that take care of aging parents. And as I shared in the quick pre-roll or segment right before we got started, that's what's happened to me starting 2 weeks ago. But the cool news is I am not the first one to go through this, and there's some women who have done it before me. And so what do we do when we need help? We reach out to our gal pals, or really, in this case, Stella reached out to me first. And I thought, I got to have a conversation. I want to have a conversation to understand what she has already figured out about how to take care of herself so that she can take care of her aging parents. And both of them, as you're going to learn, need her direct help. And because here's the deal, if I am not healthy and sane, I can't help my aging parents. And so it's really turned up the volume for me on what self-care needs to look like now and how to do it kind of like logistically with additional strains. So, or I should say demands on my time. So that's why I'm having this conversation with Stella. And she's like, yeah, I'd be happy to do it because, hey, I know I'm not alone. I know there's a lot of you who are listening right now that either you're doing this or with your aging parents, or you're going to do it soon. And you know that train is coming. But hey, this can also happen and be of service or be of help when you might have an adult child or even a younger child who suddenly has an illness or something whereby they need far more of your time and attention than you currently were planning for. So let me tell you a little bit about Stella. You know, this whole podcast is like, how do you just kind of keep at building the career, the business, and the life you want, no matter what, even when shit happens? So Stella is a perfect example because she is the CEO of Tour Plan International. And that is a travel advisory service and business that's been around a long time. And they do all kinds of types of group trips and individual travel advisory services. I've used her services, highly recommend them, because who doesn't like to travel, right? I mean, who doesn't like to explore new things? But here's one of the things that's kind of cool. She's the CEO of this business that was started in 1966 by the Capocelli brothers, Vittorio and Mario. And so it's been going on a long time, and she's carried on this tradition. Why? Because she loves travel too. And when it comes to Stella, she's actually born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. She was raised in Rome, Italy. Italian is her first language. She's been in the United States for a long time. She went to the University of Virginia, got her degrees from there. And as it turns out, because a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic kicked in, I should say, we all say right before, but about 6 months prior, I went with her, and she took a group of people and did a trip to Portugal, and then found out that her mother was from Portugal. So she's just got this international history, which I think is really fun and delightful. But she's got 2 adult children. She's got some grandchildren. She's got a very full life. And so I knew that she was one of my gal pals who's been dealing with and managing. When I say dealing, I don't mean in a negative way, but she's been figuring out, how do you take care of yourself while you're caring for your parents? So with all of that, welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, Stella. I'm so glad you're here and willing to do this.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, and here's the cool thing. You'll sort of quickly find out about Stella. If we were able to do this over a glass of red wine, that would be even better, don't you think? Like, Stella, I mean, that would be like perfecto.
Possibly rosé instead of red, but okay. I got to watch the color of my teeth.
It's always something. Okay, so we're going to dive into this, but you know that on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, I always ask my guests beforehand, before we get into our topic of conversation, what's your nail color persona, and did it nail you? Just till we get to know you a little bit more before we get into our conversation.
So it was interesting, Mary, because I had done the test last year, I guess, and I don't remember what I got last year, but I did it differently, and now I am a solid sister, and it absolutely nailed me. And as I spoke to you, as I told you earlier, I printed it because I wanted to see it, and it says that I'm a steady, reliable woman. I'm cool with who I am. I don't need a lot of attention, but I do love to recognize other people and cheer them on. And it touched me. That definition really was good. Plus the fact that I love pink is a beautiful thing. Pink and reds and oranges or whatever. So yes, I'm a solid sister.
You really, that's how I would have guessed. I would say solid sister for sure, which is why when you said, Mary, if you need any help, I was like, yes, I want to talk to the solid sister. Okay. Feet on the ground. All right. So before we go into that, you said, I always like to ask your favorite nail color, right? So solid sisters they're a solid color. That's the thing. That's why they're solid sister. It's usually a pink, an all pink. It's not a glitter. It's not a shimmer. It's just like a really solid one. Well, you mentioned though, pink, orange, and red. Do you have a fave of those 3?
You know what? It's actually a combo of those. There's a color called Joy. And I don't know who makes it, whether it's a Zoya or an Atir brand, but I love it. And it's kind of a mix between the two. And I would say also, when you were talking about shimmer, I could be a solid sister with a twist, because I do like a little bit of something going on. Not really big on like glitter and stuff, but I do like a little shine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. It's like, that's a little more like complex, like the solid sister with a little sheen. I love it.
Yeah.
Little sheen, little shine. The fact that your favorite color is called Joy just puts a huge smile on my face. Oh my gosh. And when you're taking care of yourself while you're taking care of others, remembering the joy, that just speaks to me in this moment, just telling you. But let's talk, thank you for that. Now, so let's talk about your situation with your mom and dad, just kind of overall. I mean, I think it's just amazing that you have both your mom and dad still. I mean, it really is. It's a blessing and it's quite a load. Could you just give us like a picture of your situation with caring for your aging parents and kind of when it started? And I say that because we can get a picture. My picture's a little bit different. Everyone's a little bit different, but there's some themes here, but let's understand yours.
Yeah, sure. So I am very fortunate that I have my mom. My mom will actually be 91 on Sunday.
Wow.
My dad will be 88 at the end of the month. And I am also blessed to not be an only child. I have two sisters. And for as much as I feel that caregiving role, it is not just mine to bear. We do have both of my sisters and my brother as well do have a role. I think my one sister that my mom lives with probably has the brunt of that physical caregiving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do share that load, and I want to make sure that's important, to know that no, I'm not doing it by myself. And for as overwhelming as it sometimes can be, thank God that I'm not doing this by myself and that I also have other people. So both my mom and dad have Parkinson's.
Wow.
Which is unusual in and of itself.
Yeah.
They're divorced. They live in separate homes. My dad was diagnosed in 2017. My dad is the original Don Juan, extremely handsome man, very charismatic, built this business with my uncle from the ground up, and has just been my mentor and my partner for many, many years. His issues have really started coming to light with the Parkinson's within the past couple of years, I think, and specifically during COVID, which has led to isolation and the lack of him being able to travel and not be stuck in beautiful Richmond, Virginia. So my mom her Parkinson, I think, was a coincidental find. It was not something that really manifested, but she also started with unexplained falls.
Oh, and falls are that's
in 2021, she had a bad fall, which actually landed her in the ER and then eventually into rehab. And that is when the brunt of the caregiving began. That's where we had to start looking at care that could be provided in the home by someone other than the sibling, than the children. And it led to all kinds of serious chip happening. Very serious things. I mean, I think one of the immediate impacts of caregiving was the split that it created in the family, in the siblings.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because as part of my solid sister role, encouraging others, and I love to help people in general, my friends, whatever. I just like to help. If I have something to share, I'm going to share. And I never thought that I would ever be in a situation where I was involved in a family drama. And that was completely precipitated by this new caregiving role that, although it's going to happen to you if you are fortunate enough to still have your parents, at some point it's going to happen, but you never feel like you're really prepared because you don't know when it's going to happen.
Well, that's exactly how I felt. Like, and I moved from Richmond, Virginia, Williamsburg, Virginia. So I moved an hour. Bill and I, made that deliberate choice to be 2 miles from where my parents live so that we could be even closer and nearby for the inevitable. I mean, they're also in that same age range that your parents are. And so it's kind of like waiting for the shoe to drop, but you don't know when it's going to drop, and you don't know if it's going to drop hard or it's going to drop soft, and what's going to happen, or what state they're going to be in when the shoe's on the ground, And then, I did the same thing. I thought so far, but it's super early on. My siblings, it's so funny. You got two sisters and a brother. I got two sisters and a brother. Okay. And I'm geographically the closest. Sounds obviously your sister is there with your mom, which is great. I've got One brother is about an hour away. I got another sister who's 3 hours away, and another sister who's several states away. So I'm becoming the point person, but I moved here with that intention, and they did too. But throughout our lives, we've all been different people with different opinions and different points of view. And so I'm like, oh my, this is really going to show up big time. We all want good for our parents. I mean, that's the uniting thing, right? But then what does that specifically look like? So it's been several years now. I mean, for your dad, when you get diagnosed, what situation is he in? Is he's in some facility, or he's living alone?
Oh, hell no. Remember, I told you he was Don Juan.
Right.
And no, we don't do facilities. We are an Italian, Portuguese, Esperanto kind of family. And if there's any way to avoid it, then we will. So my dad lives on his own.
Wow.
He is fiercely independent, always has been. And we now have caregivers for him, not around the clock, but pretty much around the clock. And two incredibly talented ladies. And that is, I think, one of the godsends, or one of the very first things that you have to come to terms with, that for as successful as we are as business people, and for the good job that we did raising our kids, our grandkids, or whatever, you can't be in two places at one time.
Yeah.
And your parents deserve the kind of uninterrupted care that they're going to get, and attention that they're going to get from someone that unfortunately you're paying. So, so many emotions started coming in, right when we knew that we had to make the decision to hire people, first for my mom and then for my dad. A lot of it is pushback from the parents themselves, because my mom is like, oh, hell no.
Right.
I'm not giving this woman $20 an hour to look at me in the face.
Which is
I don't
cheap.
need.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And I mean, and imagine this coming to you in Portuguese and Italian. And because, usually, unless you have like a really bad situation, like in your case with your mom, which clearly she was in rehab, still is probably, rehabilitating to a new hip, to a new body part. When you have these unexplained falls, these weird things that don't happen all the time, it's difficult for a person to accept that they need help.
Right.
My dad, when he was young, was a professional soccer player for the Naples team in Italy.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Oh yes. So in his mind, his identity is
not only that,
Not
only that, but think about the complexity of when he falls. Okay. And he's actually been pretty good. I mean, lately we've switched him up to some new PD drugs. And so we may have had some body adjustment going on. So when he falls, we lose it. And we're like, oh, no, not another fall. And he goes, hello, do you not remember that I played soccer for a long time? I fell all the time. This is what you do. And then that's when the caregiver part needs to come out, and the smartass child, which I am, to say, dude, I don't think you were 88 when you were falling and playing soccer in Naples. So forgive us if we're going to be a little upset when you take a fall, when you don't have a soccer ball coming at you, or you don't have someone that's deliberately trying to knock you down. So interesting challenges that you get. Obviously you get a little bit of that pushback from them. And then, like you said, it was interesting about the family dynamics and how the siblings, everybody is their own person, and everybody has their way of doing things, and you have to work together. So much easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that's probably one of the first things that changed for us, is again, the aspect of finding someone to provide care and finding someone to manage that provided care as well.
Yeah, that is, I can understand now how huge it is. not only the decision to do it, like first the decision, like at this point, my dad is healthy and he's making the decisions. So I am of the opinion at this point, he's in charge and he needs to be the chief who's in charge. He's been taking care of my mom, basically responsible for her as a husband, for like 65 years now. Okay.
Yeah.
He's not going to relinquish that, nor does he feel the need to at this point, because he's got a lot of ability. That said, I'm fortunate. I'm very glad he's welcoming our help. And we are offering and we are making suggestions. And I kind of think of it as we're his counsel in a way, and he bounces things off and we make suggestions. And, it'll see over time whether or not when he needs to rely on us to make those decisions more so. But at this point, he's the one kind of as the overall point person. And right now, it's easy to say, well, rehab continues. You'll have physical therapy and occupational therapy, and those individuals will come into the home. And so that's good because I know my mom will accept that because I'm in rehab. I'm getting stronger. However, she's got some mild dementia, and it's not at all uncommon for, older aging parents and older people to have not be quite as sharp, even if they haven't have a clinical diagnosis. And so he's finding, I think, that where is her capacity at this point, and where's his ability to stay in the game, so to speak. And like and for him to be able to get sleep, for example, enough. And then if she's got to get up in the middle of the night, which she does, as many of us do, to go to the bathroom, and then it's now a fall risk, right? So it's not about the bathroom as much as it's the fall risk, et cetera. So we're in an advisory role right now with my siblings, but I can see from the different advice, see, this is where the points of view and things, and some I know. It's so funny, my role, I'm more the solid sister in this one. Like, I'm not going to overreact. I'll listen, kind of a thing. And my sisters are playing the role of bringing a lot more. We should do this. We should do this. Here's an idea. That kind of thing. And I'm leaving it to them to bring in more of the ideas and hoping perhaps my dad to sort through. But that, at least today, it changes so quickly. So I'm wondering here, if we go back to when your parents first needed help, which for you is now a couple of years ago, which is helpful for me. And for each of them, what did you immediately do, like in the first 2 to 3 to 4 weeks? And I guess part of it, what did you do, and what was the biggest thing that changed in your day-to-day life in that moment? Because I know you were running, you were the CEO then of Tour Plan International. You had a full life. I'm just curious, give us a picture of how that immediately changed and you adjusted.
Because I've always been a problem solver, a project management kind of person, you have to almost remove yourself from the situation, and you have to treat it as an outsider. And whenever I tackle on a new project, something that I don't know much about, I always look to the experts.
Okay.
And so the first thing to me was just getting support and finding out what resources were available. Like for my mom also has dementia. It's still mild. And some people say that it's Parkinson's induced, others say not, whatever. I think she was told pretty much right away that when she got home, she would need to have someone with her. Mm-hmm. And she would need to have, someone that could watch her to make sure that she did not fall, that she was using her walker. And my sister actually works from home. She is in the same kind of business that I'm in. She also is a travel agent. And she obviously was home, but that doesn't matter when you have a person in another room that could fall.
Right.
And so trying to find that first caregiver again to provide care, with not necessarily a huge amount of funding.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because when you look at the expense of bringing in a caregiver, it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were so many factors as to, again, whenever your parents got ill before, like if they weren't, let's say, they weren't that old, it was just like maybe they had surgery or whatever. It was always okay, who's going to stay in the hospital with them tonight? Because my mom especially doesn't speak a lot of English.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And yeah. And even my dad, obviously he's fluent in English, but Parkinson's has its own little tricks that it plays with language skills. And so initially, when something wasn't right, we kind of divvied up the duties of the
Mm-hmm.
kids, who was going to do what and when and whatever. And in this particular case, and thank God that we got hit one at a time and not with both my mom and my dad at the same time,
Yeah.
because that would have made you crazy, crazier than I already am. And, but, seeking the expert care, trying to bring these caregivers in. I think that the first thing that changed, again, with conceding that it's not me necessarily that has that huge caregiver responsibility, because I'm here in Rockville, Virginia, whereas my sisters are in Henrico, which is where my mom is.
So to give everybody who's just not familiar with that geography, we're talking a good 25 miles apart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and and I think I completely lost my train of thought, which also is something that happens quite often. What happened and what changed my day-to-day life is that it was another thing that I had to add to my head
Yeah.
of
Right.
another stressor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're running a company, you're getting over COVID, you haven't had a paycheck in a million years because of COVID, nothing's moving, and then kaboom, one more thing that's on your head.
Yeah.
So it just added that constant worry, that nagging feeling of, is she going to fall again? Is
Mm-hmm.
my sister going to be able to handle it?
Mm-hmm.
And then the worst, which is, I feel so guilty
Yeah.
because,
Uh-huh.
and also it doesn't hurt that I'm Catholic. And so we were bred with guilt.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
a beautiful thing. That's what we do. Um, and so all of those feelings make that's a huge, huge thing. And I think that we all struggle with the guilt portion of one sister doing more than the other. Um, one person not being able to give enough time, me wanting to take time out to take care of myself, to go get my nails done, and not knowing how the other caregivers are going to feel about that. I think the guilt
Mm.
is probably one of the biggest emotions that came out, of as a result of all these changes that needed to be made with caregiving and providing, for both my mom and my dad.
So do you proactively do something to try to counter that guilt or bring it down to size or
I
not?
do actually,
It would grow
in
and
this.
grow and grow and grow and grow. I mean,
Well, yeah,
you're a
and you
huge
can't play
boulder.
that game. You can't
No.
play that game.
Yeah.
And you'll see that you can feel guilty forever.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop you have to stop believing that other people can make you feel guilty. You have to, number one, own the fact that you are the only person that can make yourself feel anything.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to learn how to stop that guilt concept. You need to understand where it's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
know that you're doing everything that you can and that your heart and soul says is good enough,
Mm.
and then you have to move forward. So I work with a therapist, and I have for years. And this is actually one of the first tips that I would give anyone that is going to be in a caregiving role, whether it's a physical caregiving role, changing depends, helping walk, doing PT exercises, or just an emotional or handling finances, whatever. Um, as people are diagnosed with different illnesses, there are actually therapists that specialize in dealing with caregivers that are providing care to people that are suffering. So, for example, with Parkinson's, they actually have therapists that know pretty much what that life of a caregiver is going to be, because they've gone through it and they know how to help you deal with issues like guilt,
Mm-hmm.
with like anxiety, like, sibling issues, family dynamics, pushbacks from the parents. And even that in itself is a luxury, Mary, because a therapist takes an hour out of your time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And even if you only do once a month, that's an hour that you theoretically could be spending with your mom or your dad. So, along with the guilt, one of the main things that's come to me, and I feel like it's the way that I've been able to get through this, is you have to learn compassion.
Mm.
You have to learn compassion,
For
and
yourself? Is that what
I
I'm
mean,
hearing?
for yourself,
Uh-huh.
you have to be compassionate for yourself. You have to show compassion for your parents, and knowing that this man that started the company, that was my mentor for so many years, that we relied upon each other for so long, now it's a different story.
Yeah.
You have to show compassion for the people that are the real, I call them the real caregivers. And the therapist has always told me, you are a real caregiver. But I always say, no, those are the people that are doing the heavy lifting, the people that are there. You have to have that compassion,
Mm.
because I think the compassion, and remind yourself constantly, it's one of those things when you are hit with yet one more thing. And I realize, well, I guess I can't go to my grandson's play at school because I need to go to the doctor appointment.
Yeah.
Um, Rather than feeling guilty, rather than feeling resentment, anything like that, you got to be compassionate, compassion for yourself, and say, you know what? Hey, I'm one person. I'm doing the best that I can. I do believe I'm doing the best that I can. I got to move forward. I mean, a lot of it is faith based, Mary, and
Mm.
um,
And the faith, I mean, what is faith? Faith is trust. Trust of it's going to turn out okay. It's going to be all right. Right. I mean, we're talking about, you both, you've been Catholic. I didn't grow up Catholic, but the whole point is that we have a faith in God. So we think there's someone bigger than ourselves, more compassionate than ourselves, more capable than ourselves. Who's going to take care of ourselves and our parents. There has to be, you have to have faith in something, right? When this is, to me, a very cute, where when life and circumstances in life get beyond what you even know you can humanly do, what do you rely on? What do you fall back on? I mean, that's where, I've got to turn up the volume on my faith. Who am I going to trust in? What am I going to trust in? It just is. If I didn't have that, there's a sense of fundamental comfort. Not that it's going to be easy. Not that I'm not going to have all those up and down emotions. I'm not, it doesn't exempt me from that, but just this, I am doing, I love what you said, I believe in your heart and your soul that what I'm doing is good enough. I hope it's good enough. And where it's not enough, that there's, someone else, there's something else that's going to take care of it and make it okay for me, but particularly for my parents. That's
I
how.
mean, I think as planners and as caregivers, most women, and like you said, I do find that it is most women. And it's interesting because as I'm going through this journey with my sisters and with my parents, our daughters are watching us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they know that they need to prep, because my mom is really nice. And I'm not quite so nice all the time. And so I know my daughters are going, oh, dude, we need to figure something out quick before she starts getting too old and needy. And then we're going to have to jump in. Um, it-
True, though.
yeah, I mean, I think we as women we plan, okay? We juggle. And as part of that, we plan as much as we can. So you do the best that you can. Now, if you're a slacker and if you're truly just not interested or whatever, you're in a totally different zone.
Well, you're probably not listening to this podcast either. I'm
Correct.
just saying.
That
So
too.
I'm not,
That
I'm not here to
too.
accommodate for everyone, but
Yeah.
so let me ask you this, because I love what you said about guilt and about compassion, and that's kind of where the heart is, and somewhere where the kind of the mindset as well. Are there additional things, or are there other things that you do in addition to having some therapy sessions for Stella, to help Stella take care of herself, that fill you up? And they don't necessarily have to be big things at all, but I'm just curious, because in this thing of even self-care has so many different, facets and options, right? And so when you have pressed time because of additional demands now with aging parents, and you have this more kind of pressed on your heart about whether it's the guilt might be creeping up again, or you're feeling less than, and you're trying to give yourself compassion. Are there things that you do proactively, not just in response to the hard feelings, but maybe almost like we take vitamins every day, for example, or supplements, that we're trying to just keep ourselves healthy no matter what?
I mean, I think it's important to seek help. Seek help. Try to get help, whether it's from a therapist, hanging out with your friends. Knowing that you're not alone is huge. I am a person of faith, and so I do go to church. That invigorates me, that refreshes me every week. But I also do I do a gratitude journal. And I started doing this actually as a result of Yolanda Gray's retreat that we attended, a couple of years ago. And every day, I thank God for whatever it is that's there in front of me. And, it could be anything from thank you for a successful surgery for my brother in law, or thank you for the beautiful cotton candy sky that is outside my window today. Thank you for the hot coffee. Thank you for the dogs not licking themselves at 3 o'clock in the morning and waking me up. It's all about, again, setting that mind as much as possible to what is it, that attitude of gratitude that
Yeah.
they speak of,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and set yourself up for that good positive spin. Get yourself, or put on that armor, whether it is gratitude, whether it's turning back. I mean, to me, obviously it is turning back to God, because I know that God is he is either going to make it so that I don't have to go through suffering, but if he does have me going through suffering, he's going to give me the strength to get through it. And start your day like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
That's practical. That's very
you know that something is going to happen.
practical.
It just does. I mean, every day it's a little something, something.
Well, that's why I say chip happens, right? I mean, it's the way of saying the same thing, whether we're dealing with aging parents or young kids or a client in our business or coworkers or the other people in our, like, around where we live, or financial or whatever. I mean, you're right, which is why this idea of putting proactively positive things, doing positive things into our daily lives is just not only just makes sense, but it's just so effective. And so I was just curious, okay, what were the things in particular today with now this added aspect of caregiving for the last several years? It also makes me think that I want to ask you specifically, you're in the travel industry. So you've got a real pulse on people wanting to travel, where they want to travel, their concerns about travel, obviously because the pandemic party and other unrest in the world. Okay, so let me add to that though. Well, how can you practically and emotionally take time away to travel, to refresh, to have fun? Oh my gosh, are we allowed to do that? When we have parents, quote, back at home or in their situations, and actually be able to can we actually do that guilt free? How do you do that? Because I would like to still take the vacation or the big trip that Bill and I had been thinking about doing later this year, and then I go, okay, can I still do that? What does it look like?
I mean, it's not easy, Mary. It's not easy because, not only do you have the emotional component, you have a financial component, especially with traveling. So for me, I travel for two reasons. One of them is for business, to escort different groups, to do site inspections. And then another is personal. I don't do a lot of personal travel, but I did just go to the Cayman Islands in January for a week with a friend, with a girlfriend. And it was amazing. Did I feel guilty? Yes.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being uber guilty, I can't even enjoy this time, to
No.
0, none at all. Where were you?
I would say maybe a 7.
Oh man, that's still pretty high. Yeah.
It is high. And if I feel at a 9 or a 10, I'm not going. Because
Right.
I'm just not going to be able to. But the guilt, I think, is lessened when you can cover yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so cover yourself in terms of an emergency. Is someone there taking care of my mom and dad?
Yeah.
Am I accessible? Can people reach me via WhatsApp? Can people reach me via email? Are one of my siblings there just in case is needed? Where am I? Are my parents okay with me going?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and once you get to that level, then I think you have to make yourself go,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to sit in that water in the Cayman Islands and see your perfectly polished toes at
Sticking
7
up
Mile
there because
Beach
that's when you get your toenails done if you haven't already, is when you're
and
gonna go at
see
the beach, right?
the fishies. And don't get blue nail polish either, because I think the fish like to eat your feet because they
Oh,
think that your feet are fish. But anyway, that you get refreshment from that. You
mm-hmm.
get refreshment, and you need to come back refreshed.
Yeah.
So, but I don't do a lot of personal trips. Um, the business ones, you know, I mean, when it all comes down to it, Mary, again, I think it's all in preparation. As long as I've got a travel policy, a travel insurance policy that will get me back if I need to come back right away, or
Mm-hmm.
as long as if I'm okay in my heart knowing I am good if something really, really bad were to happen with my mom and dad,
Mm-hmm.
that there's no unfinished business, and that if I can't get there, then I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard. And hopefully we're a long way down the line with my parents with that, but you don't know.
You don't know, right? And
You
it's
don't know. And it's I talk a big game. And this is what I tell myself. These are my goals, but this is what I'm leaving in 2 weeks. No, not in 2 weeks. I'm leaving in a month to go to Sicily for close to 2 weeks.
that's a long time, probably
It is.
the
It's a long
longest,
time, and it's a business trip.
right? Right, because you're taking a group.
So I'm taking a group with me, and I have responsibilities there. But I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm telling you now that I'm okay with it. Talk to me the day before, and I'll probably be like, "What the hell? What am I doing? Why
Right,
am I
right.
doing? What's gonna happen if this is good?" And the bottom line is, I think it all goes back to, we always think that we can fix everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm going to give you a problem, Mary Foley, and you're going to fix it.
Oh, I'm going to do my darndest. Like you said, you're a problem solver,
I
right?
mean, I'm going to
Yeah.
give you an outline. Okay, it's subdivided into 4 areas with, again, all kinds of subdivisions underneath that. This
Yeah.
is what you're going to do to solve that problem.
Uh-huh.
And when things like this happen, we are not sovereign.
Yeah.
It is not. It's not our will
Mm.
that is going to be met, and you can't fix it.
You,
I don't care if you're
you
here
can't.
or if you're in Asia. You cannot fix
Uh-huh.
when something terribly, when your mom broke her hip.
Oh, I was out of town. It was one night.
What I
He
mean,
went over. Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
But what could you have done?
Yeah. Differently. Nothing other than physically just be there and be a comfort, perhaps, to my mom and dad at that moment, so
Yes.
yeah, so I found out about 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, and then we were away, and so we slept overnight. I didn't sleep a ton, but let's just say we stayed the night in the place we were staying, and then had breakfast and came back, and then it's been a whirlwind since. I'm wondering, like, when you were in the Caymans, so here's this 1 week you did go away, personal, a vacation, um, because you hadn't taken much because of your time away, because you were parents. Even with the guilt, did it crank up your gratefulness, or it heightened the experience of actually getting away, like sitting on the beach and looking out on the water? Did it just like sink in more, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I am grateful for this very moment that I get to have the sun come down and my toes in the sand.
Yes, it did. And what's really cool is because, as a caregiver or just as a son or daughter,
Mm-hmm.
we keep in touch with our parents. And as that feeling of, oh my God, this feels so good. I can't believe I can finally breathe, relax. I don't have to worry.
Mm-hmm.
I FaceTime my mom and my dad so that they could
Ah,
see
ah,
where I was
uh-huh.
in the water. Um, And so, it was in a way like I may be far, but I'm sharing this with you. I'm sharing this experience because I think even when your parents have cognitive issues, I think they want their children to be happy.
Yeah. Oh,
They
that,
don't want to be a
yeah.
burden,
Mm.
and they know, in my case, as I said, both of my parents are fiercely independent and they don't like it. They don't like having to have people, making people take care of them. I'm sure they don't like the fact that, kids are having to give up what they want to do because they need to stay home and watch them,
Right. That they don't
and
want us to, quote, give up our lives,
right.
for, and that's the really, in some ways, the best situation and the best perspective of a parent, right? Just continually giving and wanting to be the parent in a way, right? And yet, um I think, yeah, but she gave me my life.
Yeah.
My father, was a huge part of, not just a huge part. I mean, okay, so he didn't give me birth, but everything else, he's been right there and always giving of his time and his talents and financially to support, and how could I not give that back, right? So there is this beautiful thing that we've already started to experience of, he's willing to receive, she's willing to receive, and it's a gift to myself and my siblings already, that they're willing to take some help and support, and to be able to kind of give back. I mean, I do see that, but it's just a mix of emotion, right? It's totally a mix of emotion. I'm glad that you were were able to do that while you were there in the Cayman Islands and in the water, and what a presence of mind. Hey, I'm going to get my iPad, for example, or my phone, and we're going to FaceTime right now, and of course, let's not drop it into the water, but and actually share that experience, right? Because they know they really can't physically get there, but they can, in their mind, kind of go there with you, right?
Hmm.
And actually, it's
Hmm.
real time. And I was thinking, Was it possible that while you were doing that, that you were wearing your joy nail color on your fingernails or your toenails?
No, because actually I was wearing Journey as my color,
Oh, okay.
which
That's a
again
good
has
name
all
too.
kinds of connotations as well,
Right.
Mary.
Right.
So
Oh,
yeah,
that's another good one.
yeah.
Well, this has been great. In fact, I want to ask you about nail color as we wrap up. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you for being so open and so real. I know it's a sliver in some ways of the journey of the story of this chapter of your life with your aging parents. It's super meaningful to me. Thank you. I took some notes here. There's simple but powerful things around guilt, around about being good enough to saying and focusing on what's going right, focusing on the things that you can be grateful for, and making sure also that we reach out for some resources. You know, the ones that you really specifically shared around therapy, and then also hanging out with friends. It really just shows the power of connecting with other, particularly female friends, and connecting with other people, and allowing your either small circle or your bigger circle of people that you know uh to pour into your life for that moment, and to help you, which you are doing for me right now. Thank you very much, Miss
And you are doing for
Capocelli
me.
Carter.
So there you go,
It goes both ways. I love that. All
It's
right, so
true.
I always ask my gal pals guests here on the podcast if you could create a name for a nail color to inspire us. And in this sense, to inspire us to take care of ourselves while we take care of our aging parents. What would that name be? Now, I know we had two names you already have been brought up. Those are real names. They may be the ones you pick, or they may be one you made up and created on the spot.
Because I am always full of it. And of that, I mean good ideas.
Yeah.
I came up with Compassionate Cranberry.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Why cranberry? Just because it was another C word? Is that why?
It was a good C word, and because it's kind of pinkish, reddish, and orangish.
Yeah.
And but again, I think, as I was looking through and thinking about all we had talked about, compassion just sticks with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be, I think that's the key
I love that.
to
And you say
keeping it together.
compassion for yourself, compassion for your parents, and compassion for what you call the real caregivers, the ones that are right there doing the actual work, and trained in that way. Wow. All right, I'm going to keep all that in mind as I go forward, and I know that there are gals listening who also are going to be able to take from your experience and encourage what they're doing and give them some new ideas. So thanks so much. And for those who want to find out more about you and maybe taking a tour, I mean, being on one of Sicily, you got Normandy, you got all kinds of places. How can they find out more about Tour Plan International?
Well, so thank you, number one, Mary. This was actually, just this whole sharing. This is part of the catharsis. This is part of keeping it together. And as my solid sister attitude and sharing with others, these little small groups that the company does, and the company is called Tour Plan International. And you can reach me at s.capocelli@tourplaninternational.com, or just go to our website, Tour Plan International. But a lot of these small groups that we do, they're very organic in growth. And so it's amazing how many similar type people will meet with these small groups that may come without spouses, either because they don't want the spouse to go, they don't have a spouse for whatever reason. But you find these common interests, and a lot of them have to do, believe it or not, with caregiving. People in this age group that are starting to go through this, and it's so nice to be able to exchange. And so anyway, one of the things that I love to do for the company is bring people together that wouldn't normally travel on their own, because they're not comfortable. They want peace of mind knowing that someone else is going to take care of all the details. And so reach out. We actually have a beautiful trip planned for Italy in October. And if you are a person of faith or would love to know more about St. Francis, for example, we'll be visiting Assisi
Oh, neat.
in Umbria, in Italy.
Well,
With-
I'm a big endorsement of your small group travel. I've experienced it myself. Actually, you've also helped me with individual travel, Bill and I did. But what I loved about the small group is we just said yes. We blocked it on our calendar. And after that, we really didn't have to think. We didn't have to think about flights hardly. We didn't have to hardly think about the hotels. You had some great tours and you also had free time. And so it actually just...
The only thing that you had to decide was how much octopus you were going to eat and how much Vinho Verde we were going to drink, right?
That's right. And by the way, both of those were good things. All right.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd
Amen.
had octopus prior to that, but I'm all about it now. So
Amen. Amen. Yeah.
all right. Thank you so much. We'll be putting that Compassionate Cranberry on too. I'm going to put all the links to Tour Plan International, your email address, since you offered that, in the show notes. So anyone listening right now, just scroll down to the show notes. You can see the links there. And thanks so much, Stella. We'll be in touch soon.
You are so welcome. Thanks, Mary.
And now for the after party I call Flip the Chip, where I take a few moments to highlight something my gal pal shared that can help us all flip a challenge or a difficulty that's holding us back into something more positive that helps us move forward. What I want to highlight today are Stella's 3 practical tips for taking care of yourself while taking care of aging parents. Tip number 1 is to focus on compassion. Compassion for your loved one who is aging, for your imperfect self who is trying to juggle everything and be the best adult child you can be, for the trained caregivers who are superheroes with challenging lives themselves. Number 2, keep a gratitude journal. This is an idea that's been suggested again and again by Live Like Your Nail Color podcast guests, so clearly it works for lots of situations. Maybe it's a written notebook or planner. Maybe it's a sticky note. Maybe it's an app. Maybe you say it to yourself in the mirror. The important part is remembering at least a few things each day that you're grateful for, even a cotton candy sky, like Stella noticed. And number 3 is to seek help, whether that's professional therapy, taking time to hang out with your friends, or going to church, or all the above. Just don't try to do it all alone. Even when you don't feel like it, or maybe especially when you don't feel like it, that's when you really need to reach out. Of course, you can also use your nail color to cheer you on by simply putting on a new color and giving it the name Compassionate Cranberry, as Stella suggested, so that every time you look at your fingers or toes, you're reminded to focus on compassion and ease the guilt that wants to beat you up. You can make good choices to create the career, business, and life you want, one step, one nail color at a time. Look forward to being with you next time on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Ready to live and laugh more? Know a friend who could use some of that too? Then subscribe at livelikeyournailcolor.com or your favorite podcast app and share this episode right now with the person who popped into your mind. Together, let's flip the chip to be stronger, smarter, and happier.